Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. For this series, I'm going to do every single outfit in the Cardcaptor Sakura series until I get bored or tired. So I'm going to try to do as many outfits as I can. I have a little, uh, what are these called? What's this program called? Pure. Guys, I just came off of winter break, so just bear with me as I get back on my 2 feet. But basically, I don't know about you guys, but growing up for me, I was enchanted, to say the least, by this show. I was like, she has all these crazy, beautiful outfits per like demon or whatever she's trying to capture. I kind of literally forgot the plot, but
안녕히 계세요, 여러분.
who cares? Because I'm just gonna make these outfits. Like, look, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? She was serving so many looks. I feel like it's so underrated. Like, look at this. Are you kidding me? The bow here and the bow there. Ties it all together with the bow feet. There's like so many moments in this show where I was just like, I I would love this in my closet. I would. This was the cutest Bambuda show. Are you kidding? Oh my gosh. I remember these ribbon lace-up ballet flats. Oh my goodness. The way I wanted this like offset moment for myself, and I just couldn't get it. I didn't have the means to make that ribbon situation happen for myself. But digitally, I do. So boom. That's why I wanted to do this series, because I feel like if I just live vicariously through my digital avatar, then it's pretty much reality. So let's dive right in. So the first one that I want to do is the iconic opening theme song. I also think this would be educational in some degree, but by no means am I going to do this character or this series as technically as I did my other videos, just because I feel like for those I wanted to really teach you some of the tools and stuff. This one will just be fun with pockets of little tips and tricks, if you will. So yeah, whenever it comes to stylized, a lot of people ask me, how do we do stylized for Marvelous Designer? Because Marvelous Designer is built for more realistic folds. But I always think that's kind of silly because, as you can see with stylized, of course, there's always a range. But when it comes to anime, what tends to happen is everything else is realistically executed except for the face and maybe the proportions of the body. But as you can see, these folds are all recognizable. We kind of understand what type of fabric this is and what's really going on. So when it comes to the physics, it's all pretty much the same. It's just hitting these stylized silhouettes that's going to be really important. So let's dive in and put some clothing on her. So I could go about it a few ways, but I think I will just start with a base. Oh, and by the way, I am using Hannah right now from the Avatar section of MD. I always try for demos to do whatever's available because I want to show you guys that you can really do a lot with very little. So I'm gonna add this, okay, I'm gonna add this t-shirt. I always like adding this t-shirt. One, it's pretty nicely built, to be honest. And two, I feel like it kind of gives me a lot of things that I need. Like, it's generally in the area that the body is in, and I have to just move around a few pieces, but I feel like this is easier to me, I guess, like in my brain, because it's not like these flat shapes that I'm building out like on our 2D window. I'm just kind of grabbing it from 3D space and just kind of moving it around so that it could fit our body. And so this is just a nice little cheap way of being lazy. So let's sim it. Obviously this is too big, So I'm gonna go ahead and actually delete our, maybe, you know what, I'll bring them back. I'll bring them back because I like the relationships that they have. Like in all these things, they have all the relationships kind of worked out for you. And it's usually built very clean, very nicely. So I like using as much as I can of that. And so let's just build out our torso area. And let's start from the neck down. Whoa, this person has a white face and then, like, do you see it? The white and then this. I like your style. Okay, so I'm just gonna build out our neck area first. And there's really no rhyme or reason. I'm just trying to close the hole here, if you will. And as I do that, I'm just going to make sure that we are, updating our shapes so it doesn't look crazy. So it looks like it's 14 centimeters. So let's do that on the other side. I'm going to press Alt so that it stays in the angle. And we're just going to pull this guy up higher. Cool. All right. I'll just sim this so that I can see where we're at. It looks like there's this weird kind of peak that's starting to happen, so that's letting me know there's a little bit too much fabric here. So okay, I'll go ahead and just shrink that area right there so it's more taut. And already we have that already being much better. So this is pretty much what we're going off of. So I think in reality, although this is very ambiguous to me, I think this is just going to be a nice little collar and then it'll ruffle here. I think it's just gathering here. I think maybe it felt a little plain in that area, so maybe the person drawing it put a little bit more energy into it. But I find this a little ambiguous to me, so I'm going to go off of what I see in actual real life clothing. Okay. Okay, so basically what this will be is a turtleneck with the turtleneck part, these are all official terms, being ruffled. So with that, with all things, I always try to do the simplest shape first. I think a lot of people try to do the ruffles right away, but when it comes to adding a ruffle onto like a sleeve or a collar or even a skirt, I actually start with no ruffles, right? Because for me, this is a new piece that I've never done before, so I'm just getting to know the vibes, right? I'm not trying to think too much. I'm not trying to say I'm an expert. I am simply just trying to get used to how this body is and how everything works. Cool. So we got our back side and our front side, and we're going to use our arrangement points here so that we can snap these bad boys into place. I'm just going to grab our back and freeze our back collar because I just want to sew in this guy first. All right, and we're just going to go ahead and freeze everybody so that these guys snap to where they need to go extremely fast without me ruining, like, I don't know. Sometimes they push and tug in ways and it kind of ruins the placement of my shirt. So we're going to do that again for our backside. We're just going to grab it. And with anything that is symmetrical, it will snap the other half to the opposite side respectfully. And that's why whenever I can do symmetry, I will. Alright, cool. So now that we have these guys, and we're just going to stiffen them so I can see what's happening. Sometimes I use strengthen so that I can just simply see what the forms are actually looking like. Again, it's just to simplify what I have, right? Alright. So a big collar it is. Alright, and already we are getting kind of that vibe. But I will say, I think this guy can fan out just a little bit more. As you can see, it's kind of fanning out like that. Alright, like so. And righto. Sew that together. Alright. Before I start ruffling this guy, I'm just gonna bring everyone else into their respectful spots. I think ruffles are secondary folds. What I need to do is just do my block out first. So I need to put in everything before I start uh, detailing it. So I'm going to grab it in my 3D space so I can see where it is in my 2D space. And we're just going to pull it inwards to where about that dot was. Awesome. And I feel like we can pull it ever so much more into the space that we need to go. And I'm just simply looking at this line. I'm not really worried about all of this. One thing at a time, guys. I feel like very quickly MD can be very overwhelming because you notice something, you see something as you move stuff, and then you're twirling the thing around and you forgot exactly what was the aim first place. So right now for me it was just hitting that guy so that it sits right at the top of that shoulder, just like how this seam right here. You see that line? Love it when concept artists just give me a hint of what's going on. That's gold for me. All right, so let's just make this arm side a little bit smaller. As you can see, it is quite big for her. So we're just gonna pull it all the way up, see what we get. All right, I like that. I do. All right, so I'm adjusting these guys to sit pretty. It just, when I go to the side, especially on the side, you can kind of see how much this back pattern kind of pulls up to the front here. And ideally, we kind of want this guy to sit a little bit more on the middle of the body, where I just want this guy sitting underneath the armpit, right? We barely see the seams kind of going forward, right? You don't, when you're standing forward, it's not like you see your front seam kind of crawling to your front torso. It's usually sitting pretty snug on the side. Cool. And a lot of people ask me how to get rid of this kind of stuff, and I actually think people are overcomplicating that. So I'll show you right now how I would ameliorate that. And again, I'm just making sure that I'm hitting my right angles, especially on our arm side area. As you saw before, it was kind of coming to a weird point, but this kind of rounds it out. I know it's hard to see because we're pulling this guy, but I can even go ahead and just see where that extra fabric is getting pulled. And let's just pull this guy out so that there is enough fabric here. Okay. I have to cut, I have to make a little vent, if you will. So this is actually very easy. As you can see, the extra fabric kind of almost points itself out. So what you can do is actually, before I move ahead, I forgot. I want to change the color of the white. I usually like a darker gray or something. And that's just so that the shadows, sometimes when it's white, it's so blown out with the lighting. So I just changed the color so I could see the folds. You can change the lighting, but for me, I'm too lazy for that. I'd rather just change the color. It's much faster in my mind. Base. So for me, I always have that tester default fabric. And then later on, when I need to change the fabric, that's when I'll add a different fabric. But for now, I try to keep everything at default. The reason why is because when you start messing around with the presets very early on, especially when you're just blocking it out, it tends to chug your machine and then do this weird like floaty bug thing. So I try to really postpone that until everything is blocked in, and now I have to start thinking about wrinkle fold behavior. Okay, cool. So, as you can see, there's this shadow right here. Oops, right here. And that's what I'm going to cut out. I'm going to use my edit pen on the garment. Alright, and so this dot will appear with this little icon on it. And basically, I'm just going to go into my 3D space and make this cut in my 3D. Alright, and what that allows me to do is now we have this nice little V shape here that's super faint and green, but that will do for now. And I'll just outline it like so. Now that I'm done with that, I'm gonna grab our line that we made in 3D space and delete it just because we are done with that. And also, it's just an added weird thing that MD will sim every time. So I'm kind of like, well, if I'm done with that tool, I'd rather just get rid of it so that MD has less stuff to calculate while it's simming. Nothing necessarily happens, it's just that it's another thing that it's keeping in the back of its head as it's simming. So as you can see, I just cut out that extra piece and I'm gonna sew it together. And what this allows you to do is have a more snug fit on your avatar. And this is especially convenient for stylized because stylized tends to have exaggerated proportions. Um, and so this will allow you to have a nice flat fit on the chest area. And as you can see, now we are kind of dealing with this strange shape all around. It feels very like faceted. So to ameliorate that, we're not gonna, think too hard. We're just going to make this line a little bit prettier. And I'm just gonna make sure that this segment line and this segment line have less of a difference than 1 centimeter. As you can see, it's 8.92 to my 8.68. That'll be enough where MD is smart enough to understand that that's just the same length that you're trying to put together. I'm gonna hit my 90-degree angles or try my best to. And I know visually sometimes it just can't hit it. And that's okay. As long as you are close, MD's smart enough, once again, to understand what you're trying to do, and it'll help you curve it out. It's hard to tell because we are at a higher particle distance, but if we lower this guy down to 10, you'll see that it's much nicer curve. Like, let's see if we can make this a little bit more pleasant. I can lower it to 5, and then we can really see how smooth that looks. Right? So we want this to feel seamless, right? We don't want to make these cuts and vents very obvious, right? To the naked eye, we want this to feel very smooth, very transitioning, right? So I'm just looking at that shape to make sure that it's nice and circular, so that eventually when we add those sleeves back in, they are looking pretty good on that body. All right. As you can see, there's a little dimple that happens sometimes, and that's just what I've found is that I just kind of shimmy it over into an area where it's not going to kind of have a weird apex. Oops. And let me bring this guy back up to particle distance 20. Think of particle distance as subdivisions inside a ZBrush, but it kind of works opposite, where the lower the number, the higher the density, and then the higher the number, the lower the density. So if you want a low res model, you'll do particle distance 20, and then if you want a high res model, you do something like particle distance 5 or lower sometimes. Okay, cool. So now that we have this guy kind of sitting on the body nicely, something that I noticed that I feel like we can improve is kind of the shoulder area. As you can see right here, it kind of juts out this way. So let's go to our back area. And it does kind of feel very tight. As you can see when I'm rotating it, it feels like it's really kind of cramped right against your arm. So mobility would be very hard in this outfit. And that's just not Sakura's vibe. She's mobile, right? She's got to be agile. So we're going to open that up. And kind of what that does is help straighten out our dude. I can kind of see that. Do you see how it's getting kind of pulled forward? So that's letting me know I think I can lower this guy a little bit. And let's shimmy this guy up higher. That way we're literally moving the segment line without pulling and tugging on the other piece of clothing. We're almost kind of doing like musical chairs a little bit. Again, these decisions are all made for this stylized body. So it's going to be a little bit different per anatomy. I think this guy is still kind of forward, surprisingly. So we're just gonna pull this guy in more. And in that same regard, we're going to pull this guy out more. Same concept as the shoulder, where I'm just trying to shimmy it literally to the area it needs to go. And once again, I'm just improving this shape because it kind of looked like there was a peak here. And let me just see. Looks like there's almost 1 centimeters of a difference, or a little over. I'm just gonna shorten that guy so that there's no offset or weird mismatch. And I feel like this sits a little bit more honestly. I know because the chest is kind of big for her frame. Typical anime. But I would want this side seam to sit a little bit more loyally. I guess I'm looking at this area here, where I would want it to sit pretty much mid-thigh. Oh, wait, hold on. Like that. I feel like that's a little bit more evened out, if you will. Okay, cool. So this most likely is going to be a shirt, but now that I squint at it, maybe it's like a under... Maybe it's like one of those like the first layer of the dress, if that makes sense. So like it would be like an all white dress that she's putting like these overall red dress on top, if that makes sense. I'm gonna simplify it. Cause I don't know. I don't know how to work with that. So I'm gonna raise the roof. I'm going to shorten this guy to around the small of her waist. The reason for that is because I want to honor this, right? And I feel like the only way we can, have this pretty shape where it like spans out very quickly is by making sure that there's just not a lot of excess fabric here doing weird stuff. So again, I'm just gonna pull this guy up. And I'm going to, let's see if this is going to work. Alright. It do work. Okay, and then let's check out our strain. Okay, so there is a little strain here. Okay. Let's pull this guy out. Alright, so that does help with the strain, but I'm also thinking maybe it's too close to the armpit still. Sometimes, even though it visually isn't that close to the armpit, it might just be close enough where it's kind of still feeling like it's rubbing against it. But for now, I think I'm gonna ignore it just because I feel like sometimes when another geo is too close or when they're rubbing sharply against something, it tends to freak out. But I think fit-wise, it's okay. I would even think this is... You see how when I look at it from the back, it kind of curves in? So ideally, we want to avoid situations like that just because what ends up happening, it's totally fine now, but what you're asking the sleeve to do is kind of crawl into your back space. And what happens then is there's just a lot of weird folds that start appearing, and it just looks ill-fitted. And sim-wise, it kind of can cause a little bit of trouble just because of all that excess fabric that doesn't need to be there. So we want to avoid that by making sure our body is sitting nicely without the sleeves. I think a lot of people want to skip or fast forward this part of our build, but this is kind of setting you up for success. The longer you take on this body pattern, it's literally the stepping stone to the rest of your clothes. So if this is set up nicely, everything else kind of falls into place pretty good. And then with the same concept, I'm going to try to get rid of some of this fabric. Again, we want this to fit nicely on her frame. We don't want it to feel very loose, right? So again, with the same concept, I'm just going to go ahead and use our 3D pen again. And we're just gonna make a little cut. Edit tool, and we're just gonna delete that again. Sometimes people keep it in there and they're like, see, I don't see a problem with that, blah blah blah. And I'm like, I know, maybe not this time. Whoa, what happened? Okay. What's this? Huh. I'm going to activate and then deactivate. I'm not really sure why that was reacting the way it did, but all good. You can just simply deactivate it. Okay, so now I have this guy, right? Which is definitely going in the right direction, but far from being pretty, right? So let's improve this a little bit. I'm gonna go ahead and grab these guys on the side here. I'm just gonna pull that guy up, just so that it hits the same plane, if you will. And I'm gonna curve this guy up so it flattens this area, right? Now if we sim it, it's a lot better sitting, and it feels a lot straighter, right? Before it felt like there was quite a bit of moving parts. This is not sitting the same way as this is, but okay. All good. And then it kind of dips down, right? So in this case, I want to simplify my shape and just, oh, oops, wrong guy. And I just want to lift this guy a little bit, just so that we can get that nice line. All right. And then for the same reason, we are just going to curve this guy a little bit to flatten it out in 3D space. Alright. Alright, let's bring this guy up. Again, I just see the little dimpling, so I'm just going to push it into an area where I know it's just going to sit nice and taut and not give us this dimple. So I can go ahead and try to find that with our chest top vent here. Somewhere. Let's pull it down and see if we can hide it there. Nope. Maybe this way. Alright. I'm not mad at that. For now. That'll do, donkey. And when we check our side, you can't really see because this arm is kind of in the way, but it kind of dips down here that I don't really enjoy, so we're going to go ahead and get rid of that little dip here. Alright. I'm just gonna, I don't know why this guy keeps on jumping around a lot, I noticed, so I'm just gonna freeze it. Because we want our back to feel like, it right now it's just kind of dropping from the shoulders. And I would ideally want this guy to sit a lot more taut. So again, we're just going to grab our internal line. Make a little vent. We're going to cut it. And delete it. And a whoop whoop. Shoopity whoop. Alright. Yes. So now it is following the silhouette of her body, which is ideal for what we want to do. And we're going to go ahead and unfreeze this guy and see how they are settling together. And that seems pretty good. As you can see, now it's feeling a lot more flesh to the body. Cool. Now I see a little weird stuff happening. You see kind of like this weird situation. So let's just go ahead and lower this. And we can go ahead and try to lower our guy here. Ever so slightly. Alright. And I'm going to open up our vent here. Open, open, open. I had a orthodontist who would say that. He would always go, open, open, open. And it really stuck with me. Shout out to you, man. Fix my teeth. Alright, and we're just lining this guy up a little bit. Okay, cool. So now that is nice and fitted, and as you can see, it's sitting a little bit more honestly on that side. Just want it to be kind of hidden underneath that armpit a little bit. And when we look from the front, it's dropping nice, but I almost feel like it's curling into that side area right here. Right? So easy peasy, we can just grab this guy and just kind of shrink it. Alright, and then let's grab it together and shrink it. Alright, and now that has like a weird curve in that area, so I'm just gonna get rid of it a little bit more. Alright, cool, so that feels a lot better. Again, I'm just trying to curve this guy so everything feels like it's one piece of fabric. Alright, and let's just check out this. It does feel like there's like a little dip right here. So let's improve that shape a little bit and go to our back side. And we're gonna do the same principle. We're just gonna straighten it out. Maybe like something like that, because it kind of feels like it's excess. I don't enjoy this curve. I think it's too much. Alright. Okay. It has to be a curve, but really slight. Okay, there we go. Okay, fabulous. And you might be thinking like, oh man, there's ruffles and stuff. Like, is it even worth tailoring? So sometimes with my blockouts, I actually like having a layer underneath everything that is flat and flush to the body, because what I realized later on is I can add the fluff, the ruffles on a layer clone. But what happens is if I do that, then it feels flesh on the body, but with the ruffle detail. And I feel like without that flat layer underneath, the ruffles just kind of go everywhere and become very like bushy. At least I have like a tendency, I guess, the way I build my ruffles and stuff, it would, without this flat layer underneath, might turn out really weird and bunchy and ugly. So this would be my little anchor, if you will, my anchor point for all of my details and ruffles that I'm going to add later on. Okay, so I'm just going to grab our bottom layer here, because again, I just wanted to hit the small of her waist. We're just going to pull it down little by little, because I do know that this is probably going to have to be adjusted. But I just need to make sure that it hits that area. And then we're going to shrink. Oh, you know what? I don't want to do that. Let me think. I'm gonna get our back side, because basically I don't like how that seam is going forward. I would want this guy to sit a little bit straighter, but also I feel like this area has like that excess fabric. So I feel like if I just move this, this will kind of go to the back and cooperate. Haha! And it do cooperate. Okay, cool. And I did notice that the sewing difference is a little off, so I'm just gonna improve that a little bit. Alright, so this guy is dipping down. So what I'm gonna do is grab the side points, and we're just gonna lower them. Oh, that's too much. Just a little bit. No. If you feel like the adjustment isn't, like, it's snapping, MD kind of does that, you can just zoom in and it'll be way more sensitive to your mouse. I do know that the snapping, overall, I do enjoy that feature just because it makes everything so easy, and it kind of understands like which line you're trying to line up on. But every now and then it really does piss me off. So whenever you have that issue, just make sure that you are zooming in, and then, you can adjust like a normal person. All right, so this is looking good, right? It's sitting right on the small of her waist. It's nice and straight all the way through, even despite having some strange shapes. And we're just gonna curve this guy ever so slightly more. Ever so slightly more. Alright, just so that it sits a little bit better. Okay. Alright, that looks good. I'm gonna freeze that bad boy. Okay. Okay, girl. I see you. Oh my gosh, is that Cardcaptor? You can totally tell from this point, right? I'm gonna unfreeze it just so I can sim it and it lays nice and flat. So now we have that kind of cinched area, right? Obviously, we're not gonna have it dramatic like this. I think a lot of questions that I get from students is like, how do I nail this dramatic look, right? But with stylized, you have to understand the body sometimes is not going to make any sense, right? So if you have a anatomically accurate model that you're using, it's just not gonna hit those marks. It's very exaggerated and stuff. So definitely know, like, this person's frame is still more based in reality than this frame. So, there's only so much you can do to, it's not like you can chisel away at the body unless you sculpt it to be closer to this. But just know that a lot of times it's a model issue, right? Okay, so next thing I'm going to do is the sleeves. Let's do the sleeves. So I froze everything, and we're just gonna bring these bad boys in. Honestly, before I make that adjustment though, I'm going to make sure that these guys are making sense. So at this point, none of this makes sense, which makes sense to me because we just did a bunch of adjustments, right? So it went from this huge t-shirt to this very fitted outfit. So, you know, let's just not think about it too much. And we're going to double click here so that we can uniformly scale this to be skinnier. Okay. Alrighty. And we're just going to lower it. Where are we at? We are so far from where we need to be. I'm going to lower this guy. And let's just make this hit a little smaller. Okay, a little bit more. There's really no rhyme or reason to what I'm doing. I am just simply thinking, must be small. Must get smaller. Okay, so in this case, it's going to be a little bit smaller because we did cut out that part that is attached to the sleeve. So that's why it's saying, hey, you're missing this piece. And I'm like, haha, like I did that on purpose. It's design. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this guy a little bit shorter. Yeah, I'm just going to make it a little shorter. Why not? Alright, and we're just going to scale this bad boy. And I'm just going to offset it a little bit. Okay, too much offset. Okay. So we're just gonna I think we can get rid of that guy. It's very important. I don't know how many times I have to say this, but the right angle stuff, it's really for, actual clothing, right? Because MD was made originally as clo for fashion designers. But for 3D artists, I think the 90 degrees is very important still in design and fit. But if you're at 92 and you're like, dude, I cannot make this work unless it's 92 degrees, as long as it's visually kind of in the right vicinity of a right angle, that's pretty good. Like, basically, I just don't want you to have things like this in your corner, right? That's pretty ugly. We want it 90 degrees because when it folds over and sews onto itself, we want it to feel very flat and continuous, right? All right, and I'm just double checking that the measurements are less than 1 centimeters of a difference. That way we avoid any weird ruffling. And overall that the shape is kind of as symmetrical as you can make it. I know that this is going to be asymmetrical just because of what it's being attached to, but all's well. All right, that looks pretty taut, but let me check it out. Sometimes I use my strain to really figure out what's going on. Okay, so that's pretty tight. So a lot of the times with sleeves, what I end up doing is I'll grab these guys and I'll do deactivate just so that I can see what this guy naturally wants to do, right? I find that really informative, and as a 3D artist who has like no tailoring background at all, this helped me kind of figure out how to make this puzzle feel a lot better. So clearly we want this guy to sit pretty much right next to this guy, right, without any issues. And this is probably where a lot of that tension is coming from. The fact that you know, there's so much distance here, so that means the cloth is pulling quite a bit to reach this area. So let's help it out. And overall, do you see how it's kind of just not hitting, right? It's gonna get pulled into this space, so further pulling on the outfit. So we're just gonna move that up so that it meets this guy, and then everything will slowly but surely fall into place. So we're just gonna improve this shape a little bit, right? Make it pretty. Make it as pretty as possible. Alright, so where are we at? Ooh. Okay, so we gotta make this wider. Around 18-ish. Boom. Ooh. So we gotta make this a little wider as well. I'm gonna put an anchor point right here at the start of our sewing relationship. What that'll do is it'll just isolate this sewing relationship so that when I make those adjustments, this guy isn't messing up the rest of the sewing relationships. I really like putting points on the start or end of my sewing relationships because it allows me to have that much more control. It's all about isolating the problem from the rest of the herd. Y'all feel me? Alright, cool. So let's check out what this guy's doing. Okay, so clearly there needs to be way more fabric in this area, okay? This guy is playing with me, so I'm pulling this guy pretty heavily. Like this is serious business. I am not here to play. Alright. Alright. Okay. Alright. Alright. And I want this guy to sit higher, so I'm just gonna go for it. Alright. As you can see, this guy is already, you know, this is the side that is deactivated. So I can kind of get like 2 for 1 where I'm simming and trial running this sleeve, but then this guy is attached so I can kind of see better. Already that is sitting a lot better, right? The red is almost in the orange area, which is good. And then this stuff is all happening. So it looks like the tension is still here. Looks like this guy has to go a little further out, in my opinion, for this guy to just kind of leave him alone. Okay, and once again, we're just gonna try to improve this curve so that it doesn't look like a freak arm. Alright, alright, alright. Looks like this one has a weird overlap situ in this area, so let's get rid of some of it. Yep, like the. Okay, I'm trying to get rid of this. Okay. What the hell, man? What is this all about? Okay, wait, hold on. Before I move too many things, let's just move this guy, because this guy is the one that has a weird offset. Oops, I went the wrong way. So we're just gonna push this guy inwards, because this guy, if you check, it's 0.01 of a difference. That's my favorite. And then, oh, this one with that adjustment is 0.35. Okay, very good. And then this is 1 to the, so let's pull this guy back in. Okay, let's pull it a little bit more. Okay. Oh, oh no. Am I missing something? You know what? I'm alright with this. Yep, I'm alright with it. So once that adjustment is done, we're going to reactivate sewing on all of these guys. That way everyone meets each other, everyone becomes friends. Cool. Now let's make our sleeves a little shorter. Right? A little shorter. They look like they're gonna hit like right, if she puts her arm down, kind of like right here. Ish, right here. Okay. So really short sleeves. Alright, and we're gonna make this guy wider. Clearly this tapering is, I'm just gonna get rid of all the tapering. I know with students they struggle with their forms because they were tapering things and whatever. My best advice for you guys in those moments is get rid of the tapering and just kind of work it out as a boxy shape for as long as you can. Okay. So something I noticed, this area is very short, right? And it feels like it's almost getting like sucked into the armpit, which is probably not the best thing for it. Right, I'm not worried about this middle part. We'll just figure it out later. I'm just simply trying to have this guy fall in the right area. So that's pretty good. Pretty good. Okay, cool. So now that we have that, and it looks pretty straight, but I would want to taper it. So this is where the tapering comes in, little by little, because it's giving a weird fan shape, which is not the vibe right now. Cool. So that's pretty good. We're gonna lower this guy a little bit so that it just reads a little flatter. We're gonna keep on lowering it. I'm just keeping an eye on what that looks like. That looks pretty straight. And we're just gonna curve this so that it looks, you know, nice and round and like it's a regular t-shirt without a weird point on it. Nice. So now that is sitting nice and pretty. We're just gonna raise this guy because I still feel like it. Do you see how it's kind of crawling longer than the top part? We're just gonna, because we want this line to feel pretty much parallel to that elbow line, right? Like if we were sketching it out, right? Those are your little lines you'd be making. So let's go a little bit more. A little bit more. Okay, cool. Ooh. All right. Okay, cool. Okay, so we're gonna do extend. Offset pattern outline. Let's do 2. Oopsies. Let's do 2. Let's do 2. Alright, and always create internal line. For me, I feel like there's always a need for this line. but to each their own. And we're just gonna make sure that this is tapering in the same manner, just like an extended line. All right, that looks pretty good. And we're going to do a little cut and sew moment here. And these are going to be used as my little anchor. So we're going to freeze that. Oh, I hate it when this happens. Anyway. And then we're going to give this guy the volume. So these are sleeves that I get questions about a lot, how to get that volume. And I feel like a lot of people have attempted very, very elaborate things, which I really appreciate, but I'm going to do it in a very simple way. Okay? So first things first is I'm going to extend and pretty much get rid of our tapering. Okay? And what that'll do is it'll start giving us this nice offset, right? You can't really tell because there's hardly any, but just know that that's the building blocks to fabulousness. All right, cool. And I'm just gonna go ahead and freeze my sleeves really fast and just get rid of this weird intersection that's happening because I just don't want to look at it. And then, all right. Next thing, we need to nail this body, right? So let's do that before we do the ruffling. I think the ruffling kind of comes along for the ride. So I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to do a strengthen. All right, and that helps with my bottom layer. I'm just gonna uniformly scale this up. And I know you're like, what happened to all the stuff you did on the sleeves or whatever? Actually, you know what? I'll keep that. I'll keep it. I'll keep it for the sake of having a layer that has all the sewing relationships pretty good, in a good spot. But what I'll do is my first layer clone. My layer clone over. And I'm going to remove the sewing relationship or the relationship with the layer below and then have it symmetrical to each other. So it basically would be a layer on top rather than being affected by the layer below. I'm going to deactivate pattern and sewing so that you guys can see how I use this guy. So we have this layer below. And I use this, again, same logic with this bodice being like that flat layer. This one is going to help kind of bring my volume with less work. So I find it really beneficial to do it. It's almost like having a collider, but kind of for free. All right, next thing I'm going to do is now that these guys are symmetrical to each other, I'm just going to widen it. No rhyme or reason. And already we're starting to see that volume, right? That little bubble. And we're just going to slowly scale that upwards until we are satisfied with the volume we are getting. And again, this is all something that you can achieve with one layer, but having that layer underneath kind of gives you a nice little base to kind of bounce back to or work off of. And plus, it doesn't it prevents the folds from being dipped down too deep. And what that helps with is kind of giving that a very convincing, like there's volume, there's cloth underneath, right? Okay, so I think the volume is good enough, but I want to really nail this ruffled part. Okay, so I'm going to just expand the length of this guy. And I'm actually going to go ahead and delete that curve, just again to simplify my shape, right? What is this? I'm going to, these don't look like they're lining up, so I'm going to do align to top. And I'll just snap it to the same plane. And we're just going to go ahead and change length. I'm going to do something like 50. And I'm going to extend it on both sides. All right. So as you can see, the reason why I stopped with the top is because I don't necessarily want the wrinkles happening at the top. If you can tell, let's see if there's another image. But as you can see, there's hardly any folds up here. It's just more voluminous. And then really the folds are kind of in this cinched area. And I'll get to that in a moment. Guys, little by little, I'm trying to do a whole lot all at once. All right, and then obviously it doesn't really feel like I can't really see what's going on. So this is a great moment to walk your particle distance down so that you can kind of see what's going on. Okay, so now we are really understanding the vibes. Okay, and I'm going to deactivate this guy so that you see how this whole thing is just kind of weird. I really don't know why it does that, but I'm just gonna strengthen everyone since it is the layer below. Oh, actually, I'm gonna go ahead deactivate this. And I like to sim my little, I guess, like cuffs, if you will, separately, because as you can tell, now they are like these almost like very, like almost like fans on the body, and I feel like that line feels a little bit more dynamic and stronger silhouette rather than if you sim it all together, it kind of like warbles and accommodates for the amount of offset that it has or it's attached to. So what I mean by that is if you sim this guy like this, then it keeps its integrity. But if we unfreeze this guy and sim it together, do you see how it kind of starts warping? I know in this case it's not that dramatic, like, oh, what's the difference between the and the? But you can start really seeing those things, like all of these micro decisions that you're making. It becomes a piece at the end, right? So all of these decisions that you're making to keep that line clean, to set it up for success, all of that matters in the overall end product, right? So that is why I'm nitpicking myself. All right, and now that everything is, not weirdly penetrating like it was before, I can send this guy on top. Okay, so I think I like it, but I don't really like how the relationship. Ah, I see. So there's two sewing relationships that I find kind of unnecessary. I feel like they're giving me weird wrinkles. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to do, um, I'm just gonna sew this entire guy into this entire sleeve below. That way the folds are not kind of gathered or pooling at the top. Although in this case it feels like it's still quite taut at the bottom. I'm wondering if that's because it's like kind of short. So let's lengthen it and see if that helps. Not really. Oh, I think I saw what was happening. Okay. 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 So it looks like things are getting pulled right here. So that's letting me know that it's a little taut. So let's look at our strain. Yeah, I see. Okay. So instead of sewing it to the layer below, some of these sewing relationships, I end up like deleting the entire sewing relationship and rebuilding it back. But all good. There we go. So now that's relaxing. And now I get to see what's wrong. I see. So this length is very strange, which makes sense because it's getting offset from 666. So I'm going to make sure that the length is about the same, but that looks very strange. So I'm gonna go ahead. Let's put down a point right here, so I know where the apex is. And let's just grab this guy. No, I have to do it one by one. I'm gonna grab this guy and make sure that it's 6. Alright. Alright, okay. And then it's very taut here, so I'm going to bell it out. And bell it out. Okay, almost. I'm almost there, so I'm going to Maybe erase this guy. So basically I want to get rid of that taunt feeling that we are having right now. So I'm just going to improve this shape. All right, that does relax it, but I still feel like there's quite a bit of tension here. It's pretty ugly right there. Sometimes different images give me like little hints and stuff. Because basically, yeah, I think I have to do it. So basically, these folds looked very up and down, and that was an indicator that it's kind of like cinched like this without like a fluff, right? Like I would just cinch it, and then I'm done with the outfit. But I'm just seeing kind of here how relaxed it is, right? So I'm thinking, okay, there might be some of that vertical volume that I feel like these guys aren't representing quite nicely. Like I don't feel like the folds or there we go. I think this is better and much more subtle. And basically I just don't feel like these vertical wrinkles would go all the way up like it was previously. I do feel like it would be more like this where it's like pooled and voluminous and kind of gathering down here, but pretty much non-existent up here. Okay, cool. I mean, good. Great, all according to my plan. Alright. Alright, cool, cool, cool. Yep, nice and voluminous. Not too much energy up there, which I like. And I'm just gonna fluff it so that it just doesn't kind of settle in a weird way. Like, you know, I want the volume, but I don't necessarily want it to be dimpling in like a strange way. And it looks kind of like there's a twist. So what I have to opt to do, which is not my favorite, but in this case, I will grab these guys and do strengthen so that it just keeps its integrity. And basically, I wanted to twist it. Okay, so here we go. We're gonna deactivate these guys and let's just grab these guys. Simmons, that's whatever. Alright. And reactivate. Freeze. Alright. 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 Okay. Alright. Basically, I saw a little twist around the cuff area. There we go. So I saw this twist right here. You can kind of see these folds. So I made sure that the sleeves underneath are just kind of sitting nice and straight without like a weird twist around the cuff. So as you see it all shifted into the right area. Okay, cool. So I feel like that is giving us the volume that we need. But low-key, I feel like I don't like the wrinkles here. So I'm just gonna ever so slightly just kind of get rid of that energy. Good, 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 good. Basically something more like that. More fluffy. Let's see if strengthening it will hit that. But actually it does inform me of something. So sometimes I strengthen it to see what's going on with my shape. And I don't enjoy this little weird pivot thing. Let's see where that's at. Okay, so that's letting me know. I think I could pull this guy in a little bit. And this a little bit. Oopsies. There we go. Where's that jittering coming from? I'm gonna ignore that because I think if I just do this, it'll be fine. Yeah. You know what I want to do? I kind of want to do a layer clone on top of this one. Okay, just hear me out. The reason why is because I don't like how thin and detailed these folds are starting to get. And so basically if I pack on another layer clone, it'll just kind of fatten up and loose, what is it, kind of buff out some of those micro folds that I'm having. Just because I do feel like it's gonna feel very full, right? So I wouldn't want these wrinkles to settle too deep inside of the clothing. Like I really enjoy these moments, but at the top I didn't really like some of those details I was starting to develop. So yeah, cool. I think that's pretty good. All right, we're gonna save this bad boy because just ask yourself before save, would I want to do this again? If the answer is no, then you should save it, right? Just off chance. Okay, cool. So now that we have that, we are gonna go into the next part of our sleeves, which now that I look at it, I really don't like this cuff. It's like giving me a weird situation here. Oh, okay. So then what I do is let's just go back to basics, deactivate, and let's see what the heck is going on in the base layer. Right. I hate that. Okay, so boom, let's just kind of do one of these situations. Okay. Uh-huh. And we're just gonna delete this one and that one. Uh-huh. And you know what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna get rid of that tapering, because what the hell is that? Look at this mess. When in doubt, just box it out, right? Like, don't think about, oh my gosh, how am I working with this crazy shape? Don't work with it. That's my answer to all of that. Don't do it. Don't. Okay. I'm just gonna do one of these. Like a Uno reverse situation. Okay. Okay. So I'm gonna curve it up a little bit more. So why am I doing this when I already had that curve situation? Well, the way that was built was so complicated to me that I was like, I think it's faster for me to understand this shape and how I'm affecting this shape rather than that weird shape that I was working with. Basically, I'm just curving this guy until it feels nice and straight. Okay? No funny business. Ooh, where you going? No weird stuff. Just trying to simplify. Ooh, ooh, ah, ooh. A line to the bottom. Oh, you're breaking my heart. Okay, so it has to be this shape. Okay. It doesn't matter, because there's an offset. I forgot. Right now, I'm just trying to get this bad boy to be nice and taut against this arm. So I'm just gonna move it to where I need it to be without twisting it too much. I think I did twist it a little bit, but let's see where we're at. Okay, volume, we love that for her. And then bring this guy back into this situation. Get that working out. Okay.
Right.
Freeze that. Save it, because who wants to do it again? Not me. Okay, cool. Alright, all that to say, I'm just building out another little thing, situation, if you will. And I'm going to make it the length, or eyeball it, to be around the length of what I want to attach it to. Okay, we're gonna assign it this guy. Where are you? Assign it to the base. And please don't sim this. When it's far away, just do superimpose side and it'll snap to where it needs to go, and then boom, you have less of a headache and a faster sim. Alright, so that's that. Whenever there's like a little strap or a cuff situation, I always separate out that moment. Because technically this is not going to be 3 pieces. It's going to be like one sleeve and then cinch it with a ribbon, right? But when I try to do that inside of Marvelous, it's just a lot of moving. Like basically what I learned is Marvelous Designer, if you ask it to do a lot, which is in their brain, like you're not only asking me to cinch it, but also keep my integrity as a pattern piece, but I'm so small and weak. I don't know. So it has a hard time in these moments to kind of give you that dynamic, like cinched and then like spread out. These are all technical terms. So I like to just make a simple cuff first, and then I just uniformly offset it little by little. As you can see, little by little is the key to this because had you done this in one shot, the sim would take a really long time. So having it incrementally like this is very good. As you can see though, it's really hard to tell what's going on because this is made out of like what, like 5 faces? So smaller pieces of fabric, you need to lower the particle distance for it to even have a shot at understanding what you're trying to do. Oh, I see. Deactivate. I just needed that guy not in the skin because clearly the fabric was not liking that. Awesome. I really don't know why it's puckering so much, but I'm just gonna ignore that because whatever. And then when it comes to things like this, so if we look at our wireframe, it's by default triangulated. So what ideally makes prettier pleats, and this is also kind of for, yeah, like for like pleats or collars, what I opt to do is, let me turn off the wireframe.